Hello all, welcome to today's HSO Takeaway Lunch and Learn. We are pleased today to have Mandy from Solver joining us, who's going to take us through the applications from Solver for budgeting and forecasting for your business. We've had a number of interesting discussions with Solver, and we think it is a very useful, helpful enhancement to the Dynamics platform. So without further ado, because it's a fascinating topic area, I will hand over to Mandy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you, Debbie, for arranging the session and allowing me to be a part of everyone's lunchtime for today. So I'd like to start off with a quick introduction in terms of myself. I am Mandy Roy. I work for Solver, which is a global business. I'm responsible for the UK, so I work quite closely with the HSO team as well as Microsoft. Now, over the next 20 minutes or so, I'd like to give you a brief overview in terms of who Solver is and what we do. And then time permitting, I'd like to go into a demonstration to go through a few scenarios as well. And then, of course, if anyone does have any questions, more than happy to hold fire at the end and go through any further questions or questions that anyone has towards the end of the session. So let's get kick-started off with a little bit around Solver, who we are and what we do. So first and foremost, Solver is a Microsoft preferred solution for advanced planning and reporting, as well as anything around corporate performance management. Now on the screen here is the Microsoft AppSource application where Solver is marketed. And as you can see with that blue badge, that is a preferred logo to highlight to you as customers that we are a Microsoft preferred solution for advanced planning and reporting for Dynamics. Now, not only that are we a preferred solution, we actually have a global strategic partnership with Microsoft. So 18 months ago, Microsoft and Solver agreed on a global strategic agreement to ensure that together we will co-develop to create a more integrated product for the D365 and Dynamics user. So what that basically means is that the Solver team gets to work with the Microsoft product development team in Redmond to create a more seamless user experience for that D365 user, both from a Solver perspective and a D365 perspective. Now, Solver is a side-by-side solution to Dynamics and D365, and I'll go through why I'm talking about Dynamics and D365 in a second. But the key areas that we cover is around reporting. So we are an advanced reporting solution. We, of course, will be talking a little bit more around the planning side of things, so budgeting and forecasting. And we also do have capability for consolidation. So that is financial statutory consolidation. Now, in terms of how we best fit with Dynamics or D365, we are a complementary solution. And the gaps that we typically fill are around the two areas there, which is advanced consolidation, which could be automating intercompany eliminations based on organizational structures, as well as consolidated reporting on different levels, so group level, sub-consolidation level, but also consolidating data from multiple data sources, but also from data sources, also based on financials where, Dynamics or D365, where you have entities that are not using Dynamics or D365. Sorry, I just need to reiterate that. But the main focus for today will be around planning. So what are the key areas where we're filling the gap or where we are complementary to D365? It's around really modeling that data. So what if scenario planning, driver-based budgeting, payroll planning. For example, what if we increase salary by 5% for the whole group? How does that look on a P&L perspective for each entity or department? extending that further to CapEx planning or project forecasting. And most organizations will have some sort of cost allocation as well. So the ability to have sort of like a central IT services department or finance department where they want to distribute the costs of that department to other departments. And that could be based on a driver. That driver could be headcount, as an example. Or you might have costs of a central system, and you want to allocate costs to other department based on number of users that they have on that system. So again, the advanced planning piece and the advanced consolidation piece is where Solver is filling the gap in both Dynamics and D365. Now, a little bit about Solver. We are a global organization. We were established over 20 years ago and have been a Microsoft partner for the majority of those years. But as mentioned, over the last 18 months, we have a global strategic agreement with them. We have a wide footprint of over 4,000 customers, which we are supporting from one of those locations that are stated on the map over here. We are a US headquartered business, but every single location outside of the US does have a resource that can support and implement Solver to the customers within that region. This is a snapshot, not of all the 4,000 customers that we work with, but some of the customers that are Dynamics or D365 customers that are using Solver. So we do work with large organizations like Barnardo's Concern Worldwide, which are large known charities, Airbus, which is, manufactures planes, Svitzer, which is a subsidiary of the Maersk Group, which is probably one of the biggest shipping companies in the world. And of course, Happy Socks, which is a retailer in terms of manufacturing in terms of socks. So moving swiftly on, let's talk about some of the challenges that Solver helps with. Now, most organizations today live fully or partially in Excel. And we do the same, to be honest, or we did the same. And you can imagine that, and I'm sure you're probably going through this pain point, it's a very manual and error-prone process. So if we take a look at the spreadsheet juggler over here, it all starts off from the data loading. So most of the time when you're looking at your planning process, you will have data coming from not just the finance system, but it may be the other systems like the payroll system or the CRM system. And again, the exporting of that data from those said systems is a manual process, and it's typically exported out into Excel, which means that the person that is in the team of finance that's preparing the budget has a challenge or an activity to consolidate all of that data so that you can get a clear view of where you stand in terms of your actual or your historical data. And then, of course, once you've got that view, it's then about creating the budget templates or forecast templates that will need to be sent to those budget contributors for submission. And again, bringing all of that together, building all of that every single time you go through the forecasting process or budgeting process is a very manual and time-consuming activity. And then once you've done that, once you've sent out the templates that need to be filled, that need to have budget or forecast data entered into them by the cost center managers or the department heads, you're usually sending that out via email. And they're receiving that via email, and then they're storing those files, those Excel files on their personal desktops or their end user desktops. And as you can imagine, there's very little use of security there because there's no security at all. It's on someone's Excel file. It's on someone's end user desktop. But also, if you think about the preparation in terms of sending that information out, when you've got the templates, you then have to tailor them for the end user. So, for example, Mandy might be a departmental manager, and I have to remember, okay, Mandy's a part of this department, so I need to ensure that she can't see this data in this template, but then Johnny over there needs to be able to see this template and this data, and all of that. Just the preparation in itself can take weeks and weeks worth of, manual processes and someone's time. Now, once you've sent out those templates and the end user or the budget contributors entered into them, they send them back to you. And of course, there's really limitations and lack of functionality when it comes to reviewing and approving those budgets, right? Because you've got that submission by the budget contributor, and then you need to consolidate that and then send that out to their departmental manager or the director of the region, who needs to then approve and review the budgets that have been submitted. So again, it's a very lengthy process, and it needs a lot of manual intervention into every single journey that takes place. And then finally, once the budget has been reviewed and approved, it's a matter of building that data, then taking the actuals, taking the budget data, taking the forecast data, and building that board presentation, which again is either in a PowerPoint format or within a sort of Excel report pack. Now, I won't go through it again. I've mentioned time-consuming and a manual process too many times, and I'm sure some of the challenges you are facing them today. Most organizations are. So let's talk about how Solver can help. Well, with Solver, we're converting that spreadsheet juggler into the decision optimizer, because with Solver, all of the items that I've just mentioned above get automated and put into a single system. You will have automatic data integration to be able to load historical data from your finance system straight into Solver. And not just your finance system, we can load data from your payroll system, from your CRM system. You can load data from a CSV file into Solver. We then have dynamic parameter-driven budget models, which are web-based and can be shared through our web-based portal for data entry. So that budget contributor does not have an Excel file on their end user desktop. They are accessing a web-based system where they are entering the data into the portal. And then with Solver's workflow, we have an automated budgeting workflow so that you can automatically send out assignments that will trigger an email to those budget contributors. And then it's easy to be able to see the visibility and the status of the workflow of who's completed what, who started what, and also who's been approved and which budgets haven't been approved, etc. And we also have special functionality such as built-in comment windows and line items for spreading. And then finally, you can have dynamic forecasting, what-if modeling, and a number of other features, which I'll try and show some of it today, but appreciate this is a lunchtime session. So if there are any, further questions or anything that you'd like to see, then more than happy to set up a separate session to go through those. But essentially, Solver will come to the rescue or change the spreadsheet juggler to becoming the decision optimizer. So let's take a quick look to see some of that scenario in action. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into Solver as Mandy. Now, in this scenario, Mandy is a budget contributor. She's going into the web-based portal. And just to advise that we do support multi-factor authentication, and we do also integrate with Azure Active Directory. Now, Mandy is a super user of the Solver solution because she's going to be preparing the budget. She's the budget manager. She's going to make sure everything's prepared to send out to the budget contributors. So the first thing Mandy is going to do is she's going to access the planning menu option here. And she's going to click on input templates. And these input templates are basically all of the budget and forecast templates that she has built or her team have built for the organization. I have a lot of examples here today, but I will not be showing you them all today. What we'll do is Mandy wants to first start off with creating a baseline budget. She wants to actually say, well, this is going to be my worst case scenario budget, or it could be her medium scenario budget, and she just wants to create that based on historical data. So the first thing she does is she opens up this template called the P&L breakback, and she can use the report parameters here to be able to change the view of the data. So because she's a full access user to the system, she is able to quickly slice and dice and change the view to see a different entity. So she could say, I want to see EMEA instead of the US. I'm going to leave it as the US. And then she has the ability to say, okay, well, I want to bring my actuals up until a certain period. So she can go ahead and say, I want to bring my actuals up until August. So these are the dynamic parameter-driven parameters, that we have that enables the end user to quite easily slice and dice the data or see the data in a different view. The next parameter selection she has is that over here on her column, she has her actuals year to date, then she's bringing through the budget for the remaining periods because her actuals are up until August. So over here, she's actually going to be bringing through in this column the forecast. And over here on the last one, then any scenario that is any figures or data that is created here will be saved against the budget scenario. But as mentioned, Solver does support multi-scenario planning. So if, for example, I wanted to create a what if budget, budget version 1, budget version 2, or even a forecast version 1, forecast version 2, I can store any of this data against one of these scenarios there. Now, because I've made a change to the parameters, I'm just going to run this so that it refreshes and picks up the data based on my parameter selection. And now what Mandy should be able to see is the full P&L for the US entity, but this time her actuals are up to August. So this is, like I said, a full P&L. I can see the breakdown of my revenue, my cost of sales, my departmental expenses by department. And what I can also do is when I'm bringing through data, I have the ability to drill down. So if Mandy wanted to query where that 6.8 million came from, she can actually drill down into the general ledger detail. And she should, if I had the data there, be able to see the transactions behind that. There we go, we've got some transactions there on the general ledger. Similarly, if she wanted to see the data from a budget perspective, she can drill down to there and that will bring through the budget transactions. Note that the period that we have here is for period 9, 10, 11 and 12. That's because my actuals were pulling through up until August. Now, in this particular baseline budget form that Mandy's going to create, she has the ability to enter in a desired net income. So she can enter in a figure there. So what she's going to do is she's going to look at the P&L and how it stands to date. So right here at the bottom of this form, she has the ability to see that the net income based on actuals year to date is 2.5 million. The forecast for the remaining period, so that's September, October, November, December, is 280,000, which gives her a total of 2.8. So she's going to say, well, next year, I want to achieve a net income of 3 million. As soon as she hits enter, boom, based on an algorithm that is looking at the relationship between each of these accounts, as well as the historical data and factoring in this desired net income, it's automatically created a budget for me. As I mentioned earlier, this could be stored as a worst case budget, a best case budget. And when we actually go through the budgeting process, I could compare this scenario to the actual approved budget that takes place. So I can see, okay, while I put in 3 million net income, how does that now compare to what we've actually built up from a zero-based perspective? Now, if she wanted to save this data back, she can just click the Save Data button. The next step she's going to do is she is now going to start preparing for the payroll-related planning process. Now, I've picked this scenario because every single organization, the biggest cost is staff and payroll. And most of our customers will always want to do something around payroll planning. So Mandy's going to start off the process by defining certain drivers. So in my organization, in this environment here, I am going to specify the national insurance contribution and specify that rate. I then have salary banding or grading in my organization. And based on the salary band and grade that an employee sits within, they will get these specific rates. So what we'll do is I've got agreement that whoever has a salary grade 5, they will be receiving a 20% pension contribution from the business and a 20% bonus. I then have life insurance, benefits, medical cover, dental cover. Now, these assumptions that I'm showing you here are specific to payroll only. These can be group specific, so these can be filtered out to the organization, or it could be entity specific, or it could be department specific. I could have assumptions around capital life. So, you know, the assumption around laptops or computers will have a capital life of 3 years, buildings will have a capital life of 5 years. So all of those assumptions could potentially be inputted in one singular form. Now, all of these rates that I've entered in here will be stored against this scenario here, which is called BUDV2. If I wanted to, I could save that, which I will do. And the next step is if I wanted to change these rates, I could store it against a different scenario. But now that I've saved these rates will be stored against these different accounts against that particular scenario. So wherever we are looking at these accounts and we're looking at that scenario in the budgeting process, it will automatically apply these rates. Now, Mandy's finished with her prep because she only has a limited time today to be able to show you everything. The next step she's going to do is she wants to send off the budget assignments or the templates for the budget contributors to contribute to. So she's going to go into the workflow module. Now, in the workflow module, Mandy has the ability to see and has full visibility to see the status of each of the workflows. So who's in progress, who started their assignments, and she's able to see that at any point within the journey of the budgeting process. To speed things up, I've actually created a draft workflow. So let's just go into that. I've given my workflow a name. It's called payroll budgeting because we're going to be focusing on the payroll side of things. I've given it a start and end date. That means that when the end users are sent this workflow, they have until the 3rd of November to enter in data. If they, for example, try to access their assignments on the 4th of November, they won't be able to input any budget or forecast data. I then have a 2-level approval process. So when submissions are made by the end users, the budget contributors, I have a reviewer and approver. Because it's just me on the line, Mandy is going to be the approver. And then over here, I have the ability to select the templates or the assignments I want a part of this process. And then lastly, my end users. So I could select user groups or individual users here. And then I can actually say, well, I need Johnny to input into these 2 templates and then Ratty to only input into that one. Once I save and publish, this will now kickstart off an automated process where Johnny will receive an email notification highlighting to him that he needs to go into Solver to input into or contribute into the assignments that have been shared with him. So at this point, I'm going to go into Johnny or Johnny's view. So we're going to log in as Johnny now. We're going to load up Johnny. You can see he also has a notification in the notification banner. He's going to click on the payroll budget there. He's going to open up the form and he's now able to see the payroll budgeting form that he needs to contribute to. First and foremost, because he's looking at Department 200 for Entity US, he's able to see all of his existing employees with their titles, with their hire dates, end dates. This information is actually being pulled through from the payroll system. And actually, can you believe it? One of our customers, it took them 3 weeks to pre-populate all of these forms prior to using Solver. That was for 200 cost centers, but 3 weeks of someone's time, whereas Solver was able to automate the whole process and just reduce that time down to 0. All they do now is they just run this report, they just validate that the employees are coming through correctly, and that's it. I'm scrolling over to the right hand side because I'm showing you that actually the way Solver can be built and the way this template works is that although I'm entering a salary, a final salary for this employee here, I can see the breakdown, the budget I need on a monthly basis for that individual employee, as well as the pension rates, etc., etc. Now I'm just going to run this report because I just want to pick up any new changes that have been made. And the next thing I'm going to do is I can start budgeting for a new hire. So Mandy knows that in the next budget year, she will have a new employee to hire. She doesn't know the name. She knows the title. She knows that it's going to be a salary grade 5, and she's going to enter in the annual hours as well as the annual salary. Now, what you'll notice is, remember, sorry, this was Johnny, not Mandy. Remember, Mandy has entered in that 20% for pension for salary grade 5. I'm showing you that here just to validate that that is being pulled through straight away. So it's instant. But if I scroll over to the right-hand side, I can see what I need to budget for this new hire going forward. So apologies, I think I've just messed up my date here. So let's just go and correct that. And what I could also do is I'm able to see, well, if, for example, I know that this person will work 50% in this department in the month of January, I can see that for that person over here as well. And then over here, I can see that new hire. So although I put their salary in for 100K, they start in April. So actually, I only need to budget for 75K for their salary, but also their pension contribution and national insurance contribution will be calculated as well, which will of course impact the P&L for this department, but also this entity. Now we are running out of time, so I'm going to speed up Johnny's process here. He's just going to leave a social media type of conversation with Mandy to say, please check salary of new hire. He's going to add that, and he's just going to go in and save the data so that it stores against the scenario that we have here, which is budget version 2. And he's just going to go in and complete that assignment. So Johnny is done for today. What we should be able to do is load back into Mandy. Mandy's got the email notification there to say that there's an assignment that needs her reviewer. She goes into that. She's able to see the activity log there, and she can now reject or mark Johnny's submission as reviewed. So that was a quick look at a scenario there where we were looking at the workflow. We were looking at the driver-based budgeting and planning around payroll. Just to wrap things up, because we have hit the time that I have been provided, why Solver with Dynamics or D365? Well, first and foremost, Solver is a single enterprise-wide reporting, planning and dashboarding solution. It's a full SaaS platform. It's easy to use and flexible for the end user in terms of the interface as well as the super user. Everything is web-based. It actually has a familiar Excel-based report design. So I'm sure you've seen it from the templates. It has that Excel look and feel. That's because we're utilizing Excel. I like to call it Excel on steroids. We're utilizing Excel. So everything you're doing today in terms of Excel calculation, conditional formatting, charting capability, all of that is fully supported in Solver. We then behind the scenes have a data warehouse environment. It's a database that is allowing us to bring in data from various different data sources, store that data in Solver to be able to then aggregate or summarize or model based on those input forms and reports that we have built. Now, from a Dynamics AX and D365 finance perspective, we have pre-built integrations. As well as over 100 ready-to-use reports, budget templates, and Power BI dashboards that you can get started with from day dot. So if you were to go with Solver, you would have over 100 ready-to-use reports, budget templates, and Power BI dashboards that you could really get started with and use as your starting point to grow into further functionality within the solution. As mentioned, when it comes to planning, it's not just data that we're bringing in from the finance system. We want to bring in data from the payroll system, CRM system to be able to do sales planning, sales forecasting. All of that is supported because Solver has a data warehousing capability where you can pull in data from multiple different data sources using different integration types and have that one version of the truth. And then finally, what we weren't able to show today was the real-time Power BI integration. So for customers that want to extend the dashboarding capability, we have a real-time integration to Power BI. If you'd like to learn more, then you can visit the Solver Global website, and you can take a look at the content and assets that I've mentioned today. Or you can, of course, get in touch with your HSO account manager or even Steve if you'd like to see a personalized demonstration, or if you have requirements and you'd like to see whether Solver could meet those, or if it's a good fit, or have further discussions around Solver, more than happy to, of course, accommodate that. Just get in touch with Steve and we can take it further from there.
That's great. Thanks very much indeed, Mandy. And Steve, if you can stay on at the very end after the questions, we'll record the outro so that I can edit it and put this on our webpage tomorrow. Thank you. I've had a couple of questions emailed to me, Mandy, and just start it off. Got a few people that might come on camera and ask their questions in a second. I've got looks a good product. We're interested, but what are the next steps to learn more?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I was just about to put my camera on there. So in terms of next steps, I would say that everyone has a list of requirements. So please get in touch with Steve. We can set up a personalized session where we can go through your current challenges and requirements, and then look to do a demonstration or even a proof of concept based on your biggest challenges and needs, really. So yes, if you'd like to see further information around Solver, please get in touch with Steve and we can look to schedule in those times and dates to sit down with you, understand your current pain points and challenges, and show you how Solver could potentially resolve those.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mandy. Another one from me, actually. Does it cater for multi-currency translations?
Yes, it does. So we weren't able to show the consolidation piece today, but we do have a consolidation capability. So we have the ability to automate intercompany eliminations. We have the ability to support currency translation. And of course, you know, your ERP system may be converting the actuals, but if you think about the budget and the forecast, if somebody in Europe, in let's just say Italy, is entering in their budget information, they're entering it in their local currency. So we have the ability to convert that into group currency so that you can see a full view of each individual entity's P&L, as well as an aggregated view of the P&L for the whole group based on one currency or multiple currencies.
Fantastic. And I think Ruth's asking, can you give us more information about how it integrates with D365, and does it integrate well with AX as well, if some of our attendees are on AX?
Sure, I can touch upon that. So first and foremost, in terms of D365 Finance, we have an out-of-the-box integration to Finance, where we are pulling through the GL data in virtually days. That is an out-of-the-box integration where then you can utilize those hundreds of reports and budget templates. That is utilizing OData services, but we do have organizations where we are already working with them and integrating via Azure Data Lake. Typically, some of our legacy customers have used BYOD. So there are about 3 integration types. We would always start off with the out-of-the-box integration to bring in that GL data, because it's been built and co-developed with the Microsoft team to make that quick and easy for us to provide you with access to your GL data. And then, of course, based on the number of transactions that you do, we can discuss whether that OData service connection type will suffice, or whether we need to look at Azure Data Lake or even BYOD. In terms of Dynamics AX, we do have a pre-built integration where we have SQL views or scripts that have been built to connect to that data and bring that through to Solver. And again, on top of that, you would get access to over the 100+ ready-to-use reports and budget templates.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Mandy. And presumably you do proof of concepts and demos using company data, that type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first step will always be to have a discussion around challenges and pain points, make sure Solver would be a good fit, and then look to focus on specific scenarios that are the biggest pain points, let's just say, and look to do a proof of concept around those. So that's definitely
right.
possible.
Fab, thank you. One of our customers has said they're using Dynamics CE Sales. We'd like to bring some data through to do some budgeting and forecasting. Is that possible?
Absolutely. So as I sort of mentioned at the beginning of the slides, which I appreciate, that was 20 odd minutes ago, And we have the ability to connect to a number of data sources. So although we have integrations already built from a Dynamics perspective, from the finance system perspective, we also do have integrations to Dynamics CRM as well as Sales or D365 CE. So we have pre-built integrations there which we can utilize. Once we brought that data in, most customers will want to do some sort of sales planning or sales forecasting, and then bring in the actuals into that as well. So it could be, hey, we have an opportunity that we forecasted. This is the revenue we forecasted. Now let's bring through the actuals to be able to see what was the actual revenue, and then being able to see what have we invoiced as well. So we can do that full 360 view of an opportunity all the way to it being closed or lost. Hopefully closed, and then over to actually the invoicing cycle as well. What cash have we actually got into the business? So you're able to do that planning all the way from the initial stage to the end stages.
Great, thanks, Mandy. Final one through me. Can this assist me in producing group P&L when we have entities that aren't on Dynamics in particular?
Absolutely. So we have in the ability, because we have a data warehouse framework or model, a database that's sat behind, that's the central framework of Solver. We have the ability to integrate to as many different data sources. So although we have pre-built integrations to all of the Dynamics and D365 products, we have connectors like OData connector, SQL connector, generic connectors that we can use, CSV file connector, that we can use to bring through data from any other data source. So those non-D365 entities, we can pull that data through.
Thanks very much for taking us through the presentation of Solver. As we discovered, the time saving so that can be generated through using the application are tremendous, and not just time saving, but obviously the accuracy of data and making it visible and transparent across to those people who need information. Thank you for the questions. Thank you all for attending today's Lunch and Learn. Just a reminder, we hold these normally once a month, sometimes twice a month. Our next session will be 24th of November, where we'll be looking at change management and how change management can have lasting effect on your projects, implementations, not only of technology, but any projects which you may be driving through your businesses. So once again, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the session, and we look forward to welcoming you on our next webinar on the 24th of November. Thank you very much all.